I'm here I'm here at Spit and Sawdust skate park with my mate Nick, and we're just going to have a chat basically about music and Metalheadz. You were just kind of stumbling around when you were younger making music. You didn't know what you were doing, you know what I mean? Same as learning anything, right? It's just, you just get on with it. And then, I think I'd tell myself, just don't worry about it, it'll work out in the end, you know what I mean? You'll put out music regardless, just stick to your guns, like I have, I guess, you know? That's pretty much it. Yeah, my friend circle when I grew up, all of us made music. So it was like unspoken, healthy competition. People like Dan Marshall, people like Simon Horn, there was quite a few people making music back then when we were in our early 20s, and everyone was doing their thing. And I think, you know, you'd all sit there making tunes with each other, and you just kind of pick things up off each other, and yeah, I think a lot of it was just trial and error and learning by seeing or learning by association. So I think the biggest part of growing up was just that, the people I was surrounded by. And yeah, there's a couple of people that I just mentioned that I probably learned the most about making music from, period, basically, you know? I remember watching that Metalheadz documentary. I can't remember the name of it now. Is it Talking Heads? Before I was even like 18, sat in my bedroom in this flat I was renting, watching that. It was really important, being given things like old TV CDs and Creative Source CDs by one of my flatmates at the time. And I remember loads of my mates were just buying more pop-led or more, I don't know, festival-orientated drum and bass, whereas I was kind of always looking for stuff that was a bit more rowdy, I guess, you know what I mean? Sampling is just the easy way to not get bogged down, and then you kind of got to split being creative, and I think this goes for being creative in anything, splitting between being like analytical and being creative. Sometimes you analyze what it is you do, right? And sometimes you're just kind of accepting what happens in the moment and just running with it, but you're kind of always flipping between these two modes. So I think what keeps you being creative long term is learning to kind of use both of those ways of thinking without staying in one too long. If you stay in any one of them too long when you're being creative, that tends to be when you end up in these non-ending rabbit holes and not getting anywhere. But it's kind of when you analyze and then you move over and you choose to then just get stuck in the moment. I think that's the most important thing about being creative, is just learning to balance those two ways of thinking, and you get better at using them, I think. Probably Dan Marshall, to be quite honest with you. He was like, genuinely, he was like so advanced compared to everyone else in our circle. And I used to just sit in the early days. I was making tunes, and I think that's how we ended up chatting. But I remember sitting in with him and watching him work, and it was like, this guy's like on another level, basically. This is just mad watching him work. So I picked up loads watching him and just talking to him about music. And then yeah, I remember There's other people, like I mentioned, Simon Horn. Who else was there, like really like pushing beats? There was people before that in my even younger friend circle where they were kind of messing with like Fruity Loops and, you know, things like that, Reason. But it was more in my like later teens when I sort of ended up mixing with all those people I just mentioned, and they were like on it, basically. They were on making music, and I learned a lot from that time, and I consider myself really fortunate. I've always considered myself quite fortunate for the people out around me then. Met Goldie through Gremlins. I was going to stop making music.
You were?
I was going to stop making music in 2018. And then I was chatting to Gremlins and I was just like, I just can't be bothered anymore, you know? I'm just like, I got other things I want to do. And he was like, chuck me your number. And then a couple of weeks went by. He was like, I'll chuck your number to Goldie. A couple of weeks went by. I can't remember where I was working at the time. In a call centre somewhere. And then my phone buzzes. And it's this mad number. It's just all consecutive, the same digit, basically. And I answer the phone and I'm like, hello? Who's this? He said something like, who the fuck do you think it is? And he said, who the fuck do you think's got a number like this? So that was funny. And then the first time, he was like, I'm playing in Bristol later, because it was on a Friday. Come to Bristol and we'll hang out. And he was playing with like an orchestra. So me and my missus, after work, hopped on the train. And
Is it Sign Tempore?
I can't remember what it was he was playing with the orchestra, or where in Bristol. And then I watched the show with my missus in Bristol, and then he bells me and he's like, yo, I'm playing in this bank vault after this, come link me. And part of this story is not very PG, so I'm going to try and leave it out, but I remember him texting me like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm by here. And, you know, over comes this dude in this big red Supreme varsity jacket. Come with me. Starts pouring me and my missus drinks behind the turntables. He's just doing his thing. I think Randall was there, Natalie Duncan was there. There was a few people there. That was my first impression of him. And then over the years, it's moved from like a professional working relationship where I'll hit him with beats and stuff. So, you know, you get a phone call at 5 a.m. being like, let's talk shop, let's talk about beats, let's talk about making music. He'll send me things about meditation now, and you know, I got a very funny email off him the other day about being in the studio with James, which he'll remember if he watches this. So I think these days, you know, yeah, I had a good conversation with him the other day about when you achieve certain things that you wanted to do, where'd you go next from there, basically. And he's always got solid advice there. So I think, you know, started just as a working relationship, yo Elliot, holler, send me beats, and then that sort of just grown naturally into just like, what are you up to? How's Rosie? What's going on, basically, you know? So yeah, I consider him my friend these days, you know? Probably just when he said, do an album and like 3 EPs for me. And I was just like, obviously I'm just gonna say yeah to that, you know, and I'm just gonna keep working, basically. So I think it was more just that. It's like, he's like, yo, do some music for me. And I'm like, all right, let's just have a go at this again, basically, you know? So I don't know if I looked at it as being like influential, but it's more like, opportunities there, let's run with it, see where we go. And it's turned into what it is. And I think like off the back of that is learning to get better at making music and understanding what it is you want. You know, it was always fun, it was always a hobby, wasn't it? But you know, the more you push yourself with these things, the more you learn about being creative as a mindset, I think. So if you're not being selfish with whatever it is you're creative with, then you're making or doing something for other people, which is never going to end well. So I think, you know, you have to be selfish when you're creative. Otherwise, the end product or the end thing that you're looking to do is just gonna translate as the same old shit out there, basically. That's why you get people who like have flash in the pan careers, you know, because they might make something that's super trendy at the time, but it might be what they're really into. But if it's what's really trendy, are you doing it for yourself, or are you doing it because, I don't know, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but I think the more selfish people are, the less it tends to fold into the norm of what's trendy or popular, and I don't know if it's as good, so it's good to be selfish. I've always hated my music. It's only until the last 12 months, and what are we in now? November 2025. It's only in the last 12 months I'm like, oh, actually, I'm kind of enjoying some of the stuff I'm making at the moment. But everything I've ever made, I feel like I kind of get an idea roughly where I want it, and then I just fill in the gaps with whatever I can imagine at the time. So, I don't know, I've never rated what I do, because I always think it can be improved on. Well, actually nothing in the end, because I realised that when I was younger, or when I first started having a crack at this, I was like, oh, everything's got to have a story and a narrative and all this. And then I realised that's all bullshit, basically. Some weird delusions of like grandeur, basically. You know what I mean? It's like there's something weirdly, I don't know, like self sort of egotistical about that. So in the end, I think when you stop trying to make an album have a narrative, or make it must fit in this sphere, and you're just like, I'm just gonna fucking do whatever I want, you're gonna get better music. And it was only when I stopped, when I started the album, I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna do this and it's gonna do that. And then I was like, fuck this, I'm just gonna do what I want. And actually resulted in something quite a bit better, I think, than trying to pigeonhole it. So, yeah. I just respect the history, you know? I respect what he's built, what Goldie's built. I respect his ear, but I don't know if it's not influenced the songs I made or the songs that went on it. It was just like, I'm gonna do me. That's what you're getting, basically, you know. I think if at any point it had been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna try and make this fit a little bit more there, or be inspired by the legacy, it wouldn't have been good. But at the same time, I think like many people, so many people are familiar with that label and their output, so it's like you can't not be inspired by it or influenced by it. But it didn't make any creative choices for me, that influence, if that makes sense. It's just, how do I add to this without sounding. But there is one tune on there, again, Skeng, I've referenced this tune a few times. It isn't influenced by Metalheadz, actually. Definitely someone's picked up on this already. It's influenced by Future Forces, which is D-Bridge and, I'm going to get this wrong, Maldini, maybe. I can't remember, but it's definitely D-Bridge. There's an old D-Bridge tune when he's Future Forces called Dead by Dawn. I remember when I started the loop, I was like, oh, this reminds me of that. Let's run with that, basically. But some other people have said it sounds like some other tunes, but I don't know. Just a cool tune, isn't it? The best restrictions come from sampling something. So when you're like forced to make something work, like if you warp a tune that's one tempo to the tempo you're working at and chop it up, so you'll and it's got drums. If it's got drums on it, even better, because you've got to find a way to hide them. It's more so that forced kind of approach to that forced nature from sampling. But I'm not sampling like old 50s and 70s records, because that's been done. I'm really I'm a naughty boy, and I'll sample something from 2-3 years ago, and I'll just make sure I hide it really well, because I've heard so much of that old school sampling. A cool tune that resulted from weird forced space sampling would be Crocodile on Utopia. There's a tune called Do It on Rupture. It's got really interesting sampling technique, but it's all just how you chop and manipulate something, and it forces you into a framework. To be honest, it's normally just someone like Mako, where I'll send him a beat and he'll be like, oh, it's okay, it's cool. I like that about Mako, because I can send him a tune and he's like, nah, it ain't very good. I can ask his opinion and he'll just tell you, be like, sounds like this, you could do better, nah, the mix ain't there, basically. So I don't know if it's like they've helped me realise something. It's more like through having someone like Mako to bounce off. We send each other beats all the time. I'll do it for him. I'll be like, this tune runs, this tune's running, basically. But there might be tunes which I've thought about shelving, and Mako will have been like, yo, that's really cool. And I'm like, oh, I see what he sees in that now. Maybe I'll finish it. Or, right, I see how this could be improved, or why I should scrap this, basically. You can make a million ideas, it doesn't mean any of them are any good, basically. But if you haven't, it's really important to have people, like HLZ's another one, Emilio HLZ, like super technically gifted, and I can send him a mix and he's like, yeah, it's shit, but do this and it'll definitely get better. 99% of the time, if Emilio tells me something and I do it, it's the right piece of advice, so big up those two. It's a hard question to answer, because what I do ain't that palatable, I don't think. It's way more off the beaten path, off the tried and tested path. So it's cool that people tell you they like your beats, and it's cool that people are into what you do, but I don't sit there kind of gassing myself up, or like, oh yeah, I got some cool feedback. Like I was saying to Goldie the other day, like I hate when people compliment. I get really awkward if people start complimenting me and stuff, so I get a bit uncomfortable about it. So I don't know, it's a hard question to answer. Oh, I don't care how listeners interpret my music at all, and that's, again, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, like, making stuff for other people. If I enjoy making it, that's all I give a shit about. That's all I care about. And then, does it stand the test of time? Make 10 tunes, maybe 4 years later, you find this tune again, and you're like, oh, I might work on this some more. But I don't care what other people think. If it passes my litmus test, passes my smell test, then it's getting finished. And then if I put it out, I put it out. That's a whole other process. So. There's a tune on Heads called Hypermantis, and I think it went way over everyone's head. And it was digital only, so Ant and Goldie, let's press that one. Hypermantis, that tune's so out there. I love that tune. There's another one on the album, Gansfeld, which I made in like 2018, and yeah, it's just come out, so there you go. Good music never dies, right? Those two are particular favourites. Is there any other song that I'm like, I don't know, because again, like I said, I fucking hate most of my music, but I really like those two. If I could leave one lasting mark, it would just be fucking be yourself and don't chase like admiration or like validation from other people. Do it your way and don't compromise on what you do for the sake of trying to get played or trying to get, I don't know, your music put out by who you want. Just the right people will find what you do, and the more honest you are with it, the better. So the only thing I would want people to remember is, or take away from what I do, is just stick to what makes you you, and you'll get on all right, basically, you know. Yeah, just be honest. Options available to you now compared to the 90s are almost endless. Technology's rife with making music, but what's sick now is, you know, I started and I've been doing this pre-AI and all that's happening, so you still had to get good at what you do, you know what I mean? You couldn't just fake it. It wasn't, when I started, you know, there weren't sample packs. You could buy some sample CDs, but it wasn't like now. So you had to get good at what you do, which is why there's loads of people I grew up with that I really respected, because they were fucking good at what they did. And I think it's that. It's like, yeah, now we're in this really interesting phase where there's no like limit to what you can do now, and it's just the only limit is kind of what you're doing up here. And I think, yeah, maybe to remember that while everyone else is chasing this boring ass same old two-step pattern where the drums sound really pointy and needly, there's still some of us out there trying not to do that, basically, you know, and just trying to like make shit that's different. I think a lot of the coolest memories that I can talk about is most of the time when you're at shows, bigger ones, and you just cross paths with people whose music you've listened to for years, or people you see about over the years. That's the coolest thing, I would say, you know. It's like, it's this circle of friends you see once in a blue moon on the road, rather than every day like me and you now. And I think those are the really good moments. It's just like, oh cool, I'm crossing paths with this person I've chatted with online for time, but I only get to see every so often and stuff like that. There's definitely other stories that I want to say because they're just nut stories, but for the sake of YouTube and the children, we'll keep it PG, you know what I'm saying? My missus. Yeah, to be honest. My missus and my dog are just having a stable home. I don't know. I know it sounds really cliche and it's not the most exciting or adventurous answer, but it's honest. I think it's just that. It's only shaped what I do because it's a safe space to exist and then go off and do you, basically. So, yeah. Can I talk about it now? I guess I can talk about it now. There's another Metalheadz EP we're just picking the tunes for, which there's a collab with Goldie and Loxy on that EP, which is really nuts. There's an EP for Alex on 1985. There's an album for D-Bridge on Exit. There's some collabs. Who have I got some collabs on the go with? Loads with Mako. Something with HLZ. Something with Molecular. Something with Lawn. Who else? Yeah, that's about all I've got coming up at the moment. There's a Noisier remix if we get it right. And there's a couple of other things, but I think it's too early to tell. It's just, you just work on them and it'll happen if it happens, you know. Shout out Nick on the camera, shout out Tom, Diverge, Anthony, TC, Goldie, obviously, Mako, HLZ. God, I'm gonna forget bare people right now. Who do I chat to every day? Should we look at my WhatsApp? Let's have a look at my WhatsApp, innit? Let's see who I chat to, and then I can shout out the right people. Overlook, Vega, Gremlins. I haven't even looked at my WhatsApp yet. Sim. How could I forget Sim? Shout out Sim. Shout out Halogenics. Fucking hell. Shout out Will Cortis at Exit. Fresh Old Forester. Boston. Vivek. How did I forget Vivek? My brother. Loxy. How did I forget Loxy? See, there's just too many people. D-Bridge. Phil Blocks. Natalie Flight. Jubei. Sully. Gyrofield. I'm just looking through my WhatsApp and I'm just Alex Perez. You get me. There's shout out anyone else that I left out. I love you all.